Hey guys, it's Heidi with Hush Hush Magazine. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about being an overachiever. It was actually maybe a few months ago when my career coach accused me of being an overachiever, and I was so shocked and so offended until I started to actually Google what's an overachiever, what makes someone an overachiever, and even look at YouTube videos as well. And guys, everything that they were describing was me to a T. So I thought it might be helpful to share a video about, what are some of these things that made me realize I was an overachiever, and how I've been working on it to get over it so I can be just a high achiever as opposed to an overachiever and burning myself out for no reason. So if you want that for yourself as well, then keep watching and let's get into it. So let me actually look up the definition again of what I saw when I looked up overachiever. One who achieves success over and beyond the standard or expected level, especially at an early age. And then in Wikipedia it even says performing better or achieving more success than expected through excessive effort. And so, you can see that it's kind of like a borderline, like one of the things that it says, on Google, it says people also ask, is being an overachiever a compliment? Is being an overachiever a bad thing? What are the signs of being an overachiever? Some of the things that is saying here is like work addiction, depression and self-criticism, inability to cope with failure, unethical behavior, hypercriticism, etc. So basically for me, what it came down to and how I started to realize that I was also an overachiever is because I had all these goals and all these things I wanted to do, specifically at my 9-to-5 job. Let's say, every year or every half, people will set a goal to get promoted every 2 years or something like that. I would set my goal to get promoted every year. And I would tell people proudly, every review cycle, when it comes up, I tell my manager I deserve to get promoted. I make sure I work towards getting promoted. And what does that mean? That means that every year I was cramming all these things into the year. I was, if I was expected to work on 3 or 4 projects, I was working on 6 to 8. I was going above and beyond what was expected so that I could show that I could achieve XYZ thing faster or do it better or whatever it was. And, I will say it was hard, but it was kind of not beyond reach. And so it almost kind of felt natural to stretch myself in that way because it's I can be great or I can be exceptional. And why wouldn't I want to be exceptional? Why wouldn't I want to show that I'm exceptional? And I think for me, especially being a woman, especially being historically more junior in my role, being a woman of color, being Black, I really wanted to show people y'all, I am badass. I can kick ass. I can do all the things that my white and male counterparts can do and 5 times more. And, I definitely nailed that. I gave that, the results that were needed. I did all the work that was needed, but at what cost? It got to a point where all the things I was doing, all the things I was achieving, it got to a point where I was not even really appreciating it or not really enjoying it or not really feeling like it was worth it. I will get my bonus, my performance bonus, and I'll see it and I'll be like, Was that money worth all those extra hours? Was it worth all that extra stress? Was it worth all that extra effort? And I'll feel so tired. I'll feel so burnt out. I'll feel, eventually like less interest in the stuff that I was working on. And I'll feel like I got to a point where I just didn't even really want to work anymore, and I just wasn't interested. And I really believe that I got to that point because of overwork and because of overachieving. And when I really, really thought about it, like why I was being an overachiever, like, yes, I wanted to, do well, get promoted, get paid well, all that stuff. But I think I was trying to, caring so much about how other people perceived me, and wanting people to see me as a badass, was a huge factor. And I eventually learned over time that that's actually a people-pleasing mindset and a people-pleasing attitude to take on, where I'm not even doing things for myself. So there's no real intrinsic reward for me because I'm not really invested. I don't really care about that thing. I'm just doing the thing to check off the box, to be able to say, see, I told you I could do it. Boom, it's done. And so when you're doing that for many months and many years, you will end up in a place where you start to realize, like, dang, like, there is no rhyme or purpose to how I'm moving. I'm just doing things to do things, and it's not fulfilling. And when you get to a place where you're putting in all this work, putting in all this time, putting in all this energy, and you don't feel fulfilled, you don't feel there's any meaning, and you're not, there's no like reward, basically. To me, that's the definition of overachieving. And so I quickly realized that I don't want to be in that state. Like, I do want to have goals, I do want to be successful, and I know I'm a badass, but I want to do it in a way that's sustainable, in a way that I'm not going to get burnt out, in a way that I'm not going to feel so tired that I just want to retire from life, and just like be a vegetable and watch Netflix for days and weeks, and eventually that's basically low-key depression. I don't want to be like that because that's not how I am. Like, I am naturally like a higher energy person with a lot of interests in a lot of different fields, and I want to do things that energize me, and use all that energy and all that passion for something that I actually care about. So that said, the steps that I went through was, number one, acknowledging that there was a problem, acknowledging that my approach to work was not sustainable, and acknowledging that I was an overachiever. And then number two, committing to figuring out why I was an overachiever. And part of that is like digging into how you grew up, how your parents raised you, what types of patterns and behaviors you developed. I realized for myself that growing up, I always wanted my parents' approval in some shape or form. And this is true for kids in general. It's a very natural desire to want that. And I thought I could get their approval by basically racketing up awards, good grades, especially in the immigrant community, in the Nigerian community. Getting good grades and good behavior is something that's like really prized, because that's kind of seen as the path towards being like a doctor, lawyer, engineer, which means you're then going to be successful, which then means you're going to bring, good fortune for the family name and the legacy and all this other stuff. So in my mind, in my child mind, it was like, oh, like if I do all this great stuff, then my parents will approve, then they can never be disappointed and they can never be mad at me. But of course, that's not the case. Like, as a kid, you'll always do stuff that's going to annoy your parents, and they're going to get mad at you, and they're going to disapprove. So, but that kind of established a cycle of like trying to do a bunch of things to get that approval. And then you kind of can see that mirrored as an adult in your 9-to-5 job, where you have your manager who's kind of, in some ways like a parental figure that can approve or disapprove. And then you have that same tendency and habit to want to do all these things to get their approval and get their vote of confidence so that you can feel, secure in that relationship. So that was something that I had to kind of think through and work through with my career coach and also with my therapist. The other thing that came up for me was actually finding resources for actually shifting my mindset and changing my approach to work and my approach to life. One of the books that I read that I really enjoyed that my career coach suggested is a book called Do Nothing. It's by Celeste Headley. I'll leave a link in the description of the video for those that want to buy it. Or I got the audiobook so I could listen to it. And, do nothing or do less. It really was a monumental mind shift for me, because it wasn't even just about work. It was about the way that we think about work, the way that we think about productivity, the way that society places value on being busy, being on your phone, being on your email, and constantly being on the go and having your mind like constantly spinning. We see that as a good thing as a society. But in reality, it's not necessarily a good thing, because just because you're doing something doesn't mean that anything's actually getting done. And just because you're filling up the time with things to do doesn't necessarily mean that it's things that are important for you to do, or things that you want to do, or things that are even energizing for you, or things that you even care about. So making those distinctions of like spending your time wisely, preserving your energy, working efficiently instead of just like working a lot, instead of being busy, like being purposeful. Like all of these things are ideas that I think I already kind of had an idea or intuition, but reading that book and checking out similar types of resources really gave me clarity on what type of approach I should take so that I don't burn out, and so that I'm not in a perpetual state of like overachievement, basically. And I can talk more about that. I'll probably make a whole separate video just talking about some of the concepts that came up in the book Do Nothing, because I really did enjoy it. The other thing was just reaching out. I mentioned to you guys that I had a career coach. That was helpful for me. If you have access to a career coach, or your company provides that, I would totally recommend taking advantage of that. Meditation has also been helpful for me. Journaling has also been helpful. Both meditation and journaling help me kind of check in with myself to see like, how am I feeling? Is my mind racing? Is my heart racing? If so, what is it racing about? What am I thinking about? What led me to the state? How can I calm it down? And how can I avoid getting back into that state? Because being in that kind of state over and over and over again is what eventually leads to you feeling drained and feeling burnt out, and realizing whatever it is that's leading you to feel that way, maybe taking that out of your pattern, taking it out of your schedule, doing less of it, delegating it if it's something at work to someone else, like finding a way to not have to expose yourself to things that drive up like your stress levels, that drive up your anxiety levels, that make you feel just not good and don't have a purpose and don't bring you joy. And what else? I think the other thing was just imagining the ideal feeling. I was lucky enough to be able to take some time away from work and just like recenter myself and understand like, how do I feel and what is life like when I'm not working all the time, and when I'm not doing things all the time, and when I'm not looking at dashboards and metrics and worrying about like whether I'm going to hit end of year numbers or whatever it is. And I found that there were all these other things that I cared about and I enjoyed doing, like making these types of videos and sharing them with folks on YouTube, like studying French, like playing tennis, like catching up on shows that I was always interested in but never, felt like I had time to watch. Like being able to take long walks for like 2-3 hours that on a regular, 9 to 5 schedule, I feel like I don't have enough time for that. Like being able to cook cool new recipes that, take 3-4 hours, like pork shoulder or something like that. That takes time before it can be tender and delicious and juicy. And again, like I feel like I don't have enough time of that. Like I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is like, if I could have a life where I feel like I have time to do things that I am genuinely interested in and that I care about and that I'm excited about, and I can incorporate that into my life, like I would say at minimum at least once a week, if not every day, obviously, then that's the ideal. And a huge step that I had to take for me to get to that point is to stop having my super endless lists of things to do at work and endless things for me to do, like errands to run and whatever. Like simplifying my life, like getting to a place where, you know, there are only 2 or 3 things for me to do today, and at least one of those things is energizing, and the other 2 might just be things that I just need to do. And also creating time for nothing and for rest and for, you know, just like chilling, just whether I just want to sit and look outside the window, or whether I just want to make a call to a friend or family member I haven't spoken to in a while, or whether I just want to write, read, whatever it is, like creating space for nothing. Like I definitely used to have a schedule where even on the weekends or after work, it was like back to back, like here are all the things that I'm doing or that I feel like I need to do. And that's exhausting. So yeah, I don't know. Those are all the things I have. That was how I realized I was an overachiever, and the steps I've started to take to, you know, reverse that pattern. And I definitely feel a lot more balanced. I feel a lot more fulfilled. We'll see, you know, how long it lasts for, or whether there are other things that I might need to add in order to, you know, get to the finish line. But so far, all those things have been super helpful. So let me know if you guys have any other tips or suggestions of things that you've done to go from being an overachiever to just being a high achiever and being more balanced, as well as anything else related to this that you guys would like me to talk about or get more in depth to. So, see you guys next time.